It started with a spark, a whisper of uncertainty I never knew was hiding in my heart. My engagement to Liam should have been the epitome of love and stability, but looking back, it was more like a patchwork quilt. Some pieces were vibrant and warm, others dull and fraying at the edges. The proposal had been lovely, of course, candlelight, soft music, the glittering diamond ring he slipped onto my finger. But even then, a part of me wondered if love was supposed to feel like this, muted, comfortable, and just a little too safe. Everything changed when I met Callum, Liam's cousin. He was everything Liam wasn't: reckless, magnetic, and unpredictable. We met at a family barbecue. I remember the first moment I saw him. Leaning casually against the patio railing, a crooked grin lighting up his face. He had this energy about him, a kind of wildfire that made my chest tighten. When our eyes met, it felt as if the universe had shifted slightly, just enough to make me feel off balance. At first, I told myself it was nothing more than a harmless crush. After all, I was engaged to Liam, a man who adored me, who planned our future with meticulous care. But Callum had this way of making the world around him disappear when he spoke to you, as if you were the only person who mattered. We started talking that evening, and before I knew it, hours had passed. His stories were wild and exhilarating: a road trip across Europe, diving off cliffs in Croatia, narrowly escaping a bar fight in Lisbon. He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. I tried to stay away from him after that. It felt wrong, dangerous even, to spend time with him. But fate, or perhaps my own subconscious, kept throwing us together. Family gatherings, casual meetups, even a random encounter at a coffee shop. Every time I saw him, the tether holding me to Liam seemed to fray a little more. One night, everything came to a head. It was late, and I was at Liam's house, scrolling mindlessly through wedding planning ideas while he worked on some project for his job. The monotony of it all was suffocating. My phone buzzed, and there it was, a text from Callum: "Couldn't sleep. Fancy a walk?" I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I should have said no. I should have deleted the message and gone back to picking out centerpieces. Instead, I found myself slipping on my sneakers and sneaking out the door. The night air was cool and crisp, a welcome contrast to the turmoil inside me. Callum was waiting for me by the park, his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. When he saw me, he smiled, and for a moment, all my doubts and fears melted away. We walked for hours, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams, his fears, the things he regretted, and the things he'd do all over again. I told him about my doubts, my frustrations, and the nagging feeling that something was missing from my life. Somewhere along the way, our hands brushed, and then we were holding hands, the electricity between us undeniable. It wasn't long before Liam noticed something was off. He wasn't oblivious, and I wasn't exactly subtle. I started avoiding him, making excuses, and, worst of all, comparing him to Callum in my head. The guilt was unbearable, but it couldn't compete with the pull I felt toward his cousin. One night, Liam confronted me. He asked me point blank if there was someone else. I couldn't lie to him. I told him everything, well, almost everything. I told him I wasn't happy, that I felt trapped, that I needed something more. I didn't tell him about the walks, the late-night conversations, the stolen kisses. But he knew. He could see it in my eyes. The breakup was brutal. Liam was heartbroken, and I was consumed by a cocktail of guilt, relief, and exhilaration. He asked for the engagement ring back, and I gave it to him without hesitation. It felt heavy in my hand, a symbol of a life I no longer wanted. Handing it over felt like shedding a skin that had grown too tight. Starting a relationship with Callum so soon after the breakup was messy, to say the least. His family was furious, Liam was devastated, and I was caught in the crossfire. But Callum didn't care. He stood by me, unapologetic and unwavering. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be truly wanted. To be swept up in something bigger than myself, but life has a way of humbling you. The honeymoon phase didn't last forever. Callum's recklessness, which had seemed so thrilling at first, started to feel like instability. His charm sometimes veered into arrogance, his free spirit into irresponsibility. We fought often, our passion turning into a storm that left me exhausted. One night, during one of our many arguments, he said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "Maybe Liam was right about you," he snapped. "You don't know what you want." His words stayed with me long after the fight was over. Maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't know what I wanted. Or maybe what I wanted didn't exist, a love that was both stable and exciting. Comforting and exhilarating. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake, if I'd thrown away something good for the illusion of something better. Liam, meanwhile, moved on. Or at least, that's what I told myself when I saw him at a mutual friend's wedding, smiling and laughing with a beautiful woman by his side. He looked happy, genuinely happy, and it gutted me. Not because I wanted him back, but because I knew I'd hurt him, and there was no way to undo that. As for Callum and me, we're still figuring things out. Some days are incredible, filled with the kind of passion and connection I'd always craved. Other days, I wonder if we're just two people who got caught up in the wrong kind of chemistry. But for better or worse, this is the path I've chosen. Do I regret it? That's a question I ask myself often. The answer changes depending on the day, the hour, the moment. But one thing is certain, life with Callum is never dull. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now.